Oh, welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. My pleasure to be with you. Happy Shabbat, everyone. We have Lisa with us, Kirk, and JB. And, guys and gals, they always say that you should never talk about religion or politics outside of family for fear of irritating people. I think there's a subject that is even more taboo. And I'd like to begin by addressing it. It happens to be a subject that God has a lot to say about. And, I've always instinctively knew why he used it as a metaphor. But I had a chance over these last 3 days to get to know a prostitute. And I got to understand the mindset and the ramifications of prostitution that are so troubling. So, first of all, I'm never claimed to be a perfect guy or flawed, and we have Dode as our example. So, even if I was, it wouldn't be a big deal. But no, I did not use one. I have never used one. I did not try to use one. I have never tried to use one. But I got to know one very close in terms of the interaction. And I'm not going to explain how I got to know this prostitute, because that would could lead to all sorts of difficulty. There's a problem, and the problem was that the way that a prostitute acts is everything is fake. They create a past that bears no resemblance to their actual past, to create a sense of credibility that they don't really have. And so their past, as they present it, is an act. And there's no correlation between what they say about their past and what actually happened. The second is there's this victimization attitude, where everything that happens, they present as they're the victim. They're never responsible for their own issues. There's this sense of I'm special because I am being paid by rich guys that can have anything they want. And the fact that they are paying me and wining and dining me and taking me to elaborate meals and jet airplanes and the like, that I'm better than anyone else. And yet this conflicting sense of, I hate rich old guys. It was this viciousness that becomes the facade to try to protect. And this particular woman came to believe that she was specially chosen by God. And the proof was that demons were harassing her constantly, that her life was so unpleasant, and that there were so many demons surrounding her that it was proof that she was of God. And as I attempted, as I'm wont to do, to explain who God really is and what he is looking for, because my life was peaceful and that I was content with what I knew and understood about God, and therefore no demons anywhere close to me, that was proof that I didn't know God, because if I knew God, the demons would be all over me like they were with her. It was, it's every time that I have the opportunity to study something that Yahweh says, and observations began with a whole dissertation on prostitution. And God just railing against this adulterous woman, this whore. And for the first time in my life, I got to know one. And I didn't get to know one from a sexual point of view. God's metaphor wasn't sexual. I got to know one in terms of her abusive nature, the false, recreated past, the viciousness, the arrogance, the duplicity, the hypocrisy, and the living metaphor that Yah presented through the Proverbs of why and all the way through, really, the prophets, why Hasatan manifests himself as a prostitute, which is literally fulfilled before my eyes. Any thoughts about it? I mean, any curiosity or comments?
Well, I've worked with sexually trafficked people in Turks and Caicos, and the survivors of these tell stories of degradation, incredible isolation, intimidation, debt bondage.
Yes. Oh, a lot of intimidation.
And assaults where they break this constant mental and physical threat. I mean, up to 50 johns a day, where they suffer severe emotional trauma, and they go into.
He said this was not that kind. This was not the kind of prostitute that would be on the street corner, that would be engaged with multiple johns a day. This is your
high-end call girl type.
This is your $2,000.
Yes, this is the one that comes in higher. Yes.
Oh yeah, this is the one that Yahweh was talking about. How gorgeously attired and seductive and appearing beautiful. This is the seductress that is presented in the Proverbs.
She's a different animal.
Oh, this is not the animal that you. This is an escort, a courtesan, a sugar baby.
Yes.
You know, there are preachers. One of mine, my old preacher was this way. He got to the point where there were demons everywhere attacking him. That made him very special, because that's where
that's what's her
he
view
would
too.
say
And by the
that
way,
because Satan is not omnipotent, that he could only have so many forces to muster, and he had obviously want to muster them against him. And of course, he viewed himself as
did you ever read the 91st Psalm? Did you ever read the 91st Psalm? Did you ever read the 91st Psalm?
Oh, yes.
Okay, but the 91st Psalm makes it quite clear that if you were part of Yahweh's covenant family, if you're doing what Yahweh wants done, it doesn't say if you're good. It doesn't say. It just says if you're engaged doing what Yahweh wants done, He protects you from them. He doesn't allow them to. I don't think we could be more engaged in what Yahweh wants done. And I'm going to tell you, you know how much harassment I feel from satanic forces?
None.
Zero. Absolutely zero. Most relaxed guy in the world. Feel no threat whatsoever. I'm reading in the chat room, there's a number of people that said it sounds like the story of the courtesan, of the escort, the sugar baby, is like the world at large, and even more so of religion. And, Yahweh uses it as a metaphor for religion. But I've never had the opportunity to see just how toxic it is to the individual and to those who are seduced by that individual. And how the very mentality of the falseness of the whole thing, pretending to be alluring, pretending to be pleased, and pretending affection, pretending respect, that it creates a completely unreal view of not just the job, but it shapes their entire worldview and the way they interact with everyone. And it's very much like trying to crawl into a house that the whole floor is filled with vipers.
Oh, well, yes. The material lust, this type of woman, she aspires to obtain that which uplifts her status, her
of course, right.
That's what she's about. She's all about exalting herself.
Right. So there's only one thing that God views as valuable: relationships. And the single most important relationship is a family relationship. The escort, the prostitute, is extraordinarily disruptive to the family relationship, but feigns all relationships, so is toxic and poison to all relationships. And that's the reason they're so deadly. It's why God goes out of his way to speak ill of them. But this person was so destructive to every relationship, and yet constantly viewed herself as being special. That do you deserve me? Do you appreciate what you have in me? Why don't you take care of me like my clients do? Oh my goodness, there was such an exposure, and it was the first time in terms of trying to, and it wasn't. I only knew this person because this person was threatening to someone that I care about. And I was trying to extricate the person that I cared about from this individual because I came to recognize what she was. It's the first time I've ever called the police. I'm 62 years old. I've called the police once in my life. This was the time because I was afraid she was going to harm the individual that I cared about.
Wow.
Yeah, they're dangerous creatures. Yes.
They're dangerous, dangerous creatures. Vicious, undermining, conniving, manipulative, and so everything. It's amazing to see just how permeative that kind of what that profession does to an individual, and how it permeates every aspect of not only their attitude and persona, but it's toxic to everything they touch, everything they're near, everything that surrounds them. So it was quite the experience.
Yes, most of them sell themselves to gain status, which translates to kind of some acceptance of this higher class individuals. She's a mimic, a chameleon, a nakash.
Yeah,
that's
it's like the Paul thing. I'm whatever I have to be to gain an advantage. I'm Torah observant to those who are Torah observant, although I'm really not. I'm Torah adverse to those who are Torah adverse. I'm a Gentile to those who are Gentiles. I'm a Jew to those who are Jews, all to gain an advantage. It's exactly
to exploit
the same thing.
Others. The advantage was always to exploit others.
Right. Yeah, we have someone putting up an aspect of Psalm number 91 in the chat room, and what the Psalm 91 specifically says, and as part of observations, I've already been through it in an earlier chapter of observations, is that if you're doing what Yahweh wants done, He is your protector. It's what and I had an opportunity to spend some time with my youngest son. He just successfully defended his dissertation, so he now has a PhD. And we were talking about family, and our discussion is, one of the roles of a parent is to protect. One of the roles of a parent is to nurture. Another role is to support. But one of the roles is to protect. We are, as parents, we are protectors. Mothers and fathers, it is a primary responsibility of a parent to protect. And there's lots of things you're protecting your children from. And that protection goes on for as long as you live. But Yahweh, as a parent, in the 91st first Psalm, is saying, I'm here to protect you. I'll be your protector. Because why? It's a loving father. That's what loving fathers do. In the case of his protection, is mostly through our spiritual mother and his malak, but doesn't matter how he carries out the task. That's
long as he does.
As long as he does, and he does I wrote a book that's had millions of people read it worldwide. That tens of thousands of people have threatened to kill me because of the book. Not one person has ever gotten close. I've never hid. Salman Rushdie wrote a novel that brought up one tiny aspect of the Quran called the Satanic Verses. That wasn't even 1% of the ammunition that I unloaded against Islam in Prophet of Doom. And Salman Rushdie has spent his whole life in hiding. And I wrote under my actual name, never hid for a moment. Yah was my protector. I could not be harmed no matter what they tried to do. And it's not just me, it's my whole family. It's because he's reliable. It's an extraordinary relationship. I had another interesting opportunity today. A chance to talk with a PhD and tenured professor in organic chemistry, who is a devout Christian.
Wow.
And he had read, and he mentioned that he said, "I've read your book, Prophet of Doom. He says, your argument against Islam is unbelievably compelling. It's impossible to argue with, and it's the only thing I've ever read that actually explains the truth. It just angers me to recognize how many people, particularly in academia, lie about the religion when it is so often, obviously rotten." But he says, I just can't agree with you on Paul.
Did you read Question
and I said, you obviously
didn't have an argument against it, but just choose.
No, I said, you haven't read Questioning Paul. He says, no, I couldn't read it. We ended up talking for an hour.
I disagree with it. I've read it, but I disagree with it.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, he began by saying, so you don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah? I said, well, you've got two issues there. One is Jesus. There was no one named Jesus until the 17th century. It's the ending of the name, beginning of the name. It did not exist until the 17th century. And he said, well, that's no big deal. And it's just, I understand that name is historically inaccurate, but it's no big deal. And I said, well, God begs to differ. The third statement that he wrote in stone, which your Bible probably says, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain." That's not what it says. What it says is that anyone who in any way annuls or demeans my name, I will not forgive. By taking his name, Yahweh, out of Yosha, Yahweh saves. You've done just that.
Pretty demeaning.
So rather than you thinking it's no big deal, God's third statement that he etched in stone says, it's such a big deal, it's unforgivable.
Yeah.
He said, but, are you a practicer of Judaism? In Judaism, they take his name out too and replace it with Lord. I said, yeah, Lord is Satan's name, according to God. And Yahweh wrote his name 7,000 times in his Torah, prophets, and Psalms. And he says, I only have one name, it is Yahweh. So now you, professor, are confronted with an option here. You can believe that the rabbis were correct in removing Yahweh's name and replacing it with Satan's title, the Lord. Or you can believe that Yahweh is right in saying that negating my name in that way is unforgivable. He wrote Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, Yahweh. They replaced it with Lord. Who do you think is right?
I know where I'm putting my money.
Yeah.
Then we talked about, says, why are you so, why don't you think there's credibility in the Christian New Testament? I said, well, Yosha never used the term Bible and wouldn't. He never spoke of a Christian New Testament, never even spoke of a New Testament. He said that in his person used Scripture, and said that's a Latin term, so let's not use a Latin term. Yosha spoke of the Torah, the Mizmor, which are the writings or Psalms, and the prophets. But it's interesting, when he referred to the Torah, the prophets, and the Mizmor, Nabi is prophets, the term that he would have used. He spoke of them as singular. Has had a whole conversation today about subject-verb disagreements. It's really interesting that most people are unaware of when a subject is plural or singular and the verb therefore has to reflect the singular or plural nature of the subject. When Yosha refers to the Torah and prophets in the Sermon on the Mount, it is singular. Which means that Torah teaching permeates the prophets, and that prophecy permeates the Torah teaching, so that his testimony is one integrated whole, and it consists of his Torah and prophets. It does not consist of the words hearsay written by Luke, who was not there, by Mark, who was not there. And while Yahuwah's testimony in Hebrew may have been reasonably accurate when he wrote it down, it's been so copy-edited over the years that it's no longer reliable, leaving you with Matanya, but even then, it's been changed from Hebrew to Greek. But the reason Matanya hasn't been copy-edited is that Christians hate Matanya because it proves that Yahweh was Torah observant, Yahusha was Torah observant, and that he did not create the Christian religion. And so it was so anti-Christianity, they've just chose to ignore it. He says, I've read the Harvard professors and Princeton professors' accounts of how there are a lot of differences between the old manuscripts and the basis of our translations, but most of the changes are just, like a preposition or a conjunction or an article. Have you ever read the 69 extant pre-Constantine manuscripts? You ever compared them to the Textus Receptus or the Nestle-Aland? Well, no. Said, have you ever purchased Philip Comfort's book, which analyzes each of the pre-69, pre-Constantine manuscripts, of which there are 69? No. Ever studied Greek? Ever studied Hebrew? Ever tried to compare them? No. Have you ever considered what Yahweh had to say about Paul? I said, there's a prophet named Chabauk? I said, no. Is that like Habakkuk? I said, yeah, but I'm going to use Chabauk because that name means something. It means accept this. Yeah. Accept this, embrace this. I mean, count this as true. Do you know that he told us when Paul was going to arrive, who his audience was going to be, what message he was going to convey, even his sexual orientation, that he was going to come up with a religion based upon God dying. God can't die. And that he specifically says by name that Paul is the plague of death. Are you aware of that?
Is the plague of death.
Shaul. Yeah, and he said, what name did he use? He used Shaul. That's Paul's name.
Shaul.
He says, Saul. I said, no, Shaul. It means question him. Yeah, and he said, well, how does that translate it in the King James? I said, why would you care?
Who cares?
Why would you ask? Why would you ask?
Easy to answer.
I said, are you aware that the King James? Are you aware the King James translation is nothing but a political enterprise? I mean, it may be the worst of all English translations because of its political motivations. He said, well, I don't know about this. I tell you what, I brought every book that I have written on this subject in hardback. It's the other softback, but they're printed, with exception of observations, and they're here in this pouch. I'm willing to loan you these books under the proviso that if you're not going to read them, if your faith means more to you than truth, and he said specifically, he says, yeah, I don't think I'll be open to it. My faith does mean that much to me. I said, well, faith and
how can
faith
you
and
be
reason
that
are
smart
incompatible.
And that stupid at the same time?
Yeah, well, faith and reason are incompatible. That's what religion does.
Yeah, it just means you're an expert in something.
Right. I would say they're incompatible. But if you want to read one, I'm going to be out for the next 2 weeks. Then here. Now, I'm going to tell you that no one has ever read any of these books who hasn't had their life transformed by them. Never happened. Not a single person has read these books whose life wasn't transformed by them. It's not because of what I wrote. Not because of what I said. It's because Yahweh is engaging, he's entertaining, he's brilliant, he's consistent, he's prophetic. He is so extraordinary that anyone who is exposed to him in his own testimony falls in love with him. So, if you read this, you won't be a Christian anymore. I said, now I don't want you to start with questioning Paul. It's 1,200 pages, prove that Paul is the false prophet, because you'd be too afraid that if I lose Christianity, I'd be left with nothing. Yeah. So why don't you start with Yada Yahweh? You're a scientist. And I said, listen, I'm not a scientist. But I have a friend who has written an expose on the opening chapters of Yada Yahweh, articles on them, that is a brilliant scientist and a medical doctor, student of biology and mathematics, and also a physician. And if you read it and you need a more scientific approach to it, I'll put you in contact with it. That would obviously be Roy. He says, no, I think the language you're using right now and what you're saying is stretches, my ability to comprehend already. So I think I'll pass on that for right now. I said, well, why don't you start with Yada Yahweh? And when you read that 6 days, 24-hour days, from the perspective of creation are exactly the same as 15 billion years from our perspective looking back because of the nature of relativity in time. And it's proved from the cosmic background radiation from the Big Bang, which is a term that Yahweh himself coined. When you read that they are exactly the same, if your jaw doesn't fall to your knees, then you just ought to give up because evidence and reason are not going to be of any material value to you. But when you read that the flood was scientifically and precisely described, that the creation account was precisely and accurately depicted, when you read those things, you will be introduced to a God whose name is Yahweh that you will gladly give up Paul for. So then you won't lose anything except the lie. We talked for a while longer, and I said, I'm going to help you with something. This prostitute was threatening his job, and could threaten his job because this individual was quite vulnerable on an issue that would have gotten him fired. I said, I'm going to do you a favor. I can prove how this woman earns her living is trying to take your job. And I'll do that for you. I'll provide testimony. Only if she does what I think she's going to do, which is to try to get you fired over this issue. I'll do that for you. And he says, well, what I did almost got me fired. I said, I've got good news for you. Who's the person that God loves most? Far more than anyone else. Who's going to model his kingdom after when he returns for the seventh time?
Dode.
Who is that? And he says, David. And I say, his real name is Dode. Means beloved. Do you know that Dode's first 7 children were from 7 different women? Do you know that the vast preponderance of the women in his harem, he didn't even know their names? What you did was, I'm sure was of concern. I've done lots of things that are concerning. Dode was the poster boy for doing things that shouldn't be done. But God loved him more than anyone else. He went out and said, this is my beloved son. His home and my home are going to be adjacent to one another.
Lying out.
Because God's not interested in whether or not you're good. Doesn't care.
No.
You can't be good enough to impress him. He's interested in whether or not you're right. Dode was the most brilliant person who ever lived. His analysis of the Torah and the 119th Psalm, where he takes the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet and systematically creates 8 statements with the number of eternity over those 22 letters in chronological order, alphabetical order, to tell us how to properly observe the Torah is the most magnificent piece of literature ever composed. Dode was right.
I agree.
Dode was right. The Hebrew word is sadak. He was right. And you just see this relief fall off. Man, I said, listen, the God who authored the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, very likable. Has no interest in fear. Doesn't want to lord over or control anyone. Do you know that not only does Torah mean teaching and guidance, not law, there's no Hebrew word for obey. All you got to do is to be right. And I said, let's talk a little bit more about Yosha so that you know who he is. I said, are you aware that the basis, because you keep on talking about your New Testament. I said, then I'll walk through each of the books and I'll tell you their lack of credibility. But are you aware that Yosha only came for a singular purpose? His 6th visit here was for a singular purpose. So Kirk, James, what was the purpose? Why did he come? Singular reason.
To satisfy
Pesach.
Pesach and Matzah.
Pesach, Matzah, Bekurim, and Shabuah. Yep,
And
that's
Shabuah.
it.
Yes.
Now, did he do those things alone? Of course not. I said, so let's talk about Pesach. You don't celebrate Pesach, Passover. Yosha did. He was Torah observant. It was a Thursday night in year 4000 Yah, sundown on the 13th day of Abib. And he ate Passover, not the Last Supper. Didn't share communion. He celebrated Passover with his disciples. The next day is the same day from a Hebrew reckoning. Until the sun sets, it's still the 14th day of Abib. He became the Passover lamb. Said, are you aware of what he said just before his body died? Yeah, my God, why have you forsaken me? Do you think that he didn't know the answer to the question? Do you think he was actually asking a question? He says, I don't know. What if I were to tell you that that's the beginning of this 22nd Psalm? And the 22nd Psalm explains exactly what he was doing there. I didn't know that. So you know what happened to his, what happened then? The set-apart spirit went up to, that's why God separated himself from it. Why? Because God cannot die. The basis of Christianity, that God died for your sin, is a lie. God cannot die. That's why he said, why have you separated yourself from me? Because the body died, because the body was the Passover lamb. Do you know what happened to the body? It was incinerated. Right. So do you know there were 3 occasions that his physical body was seen that next day, on Bakurim, firstborn children. What was the common thread between the 3 of them?
Nobody recognized
him. Single person recognized him.
His own mother didn't recognize him.
Right. He said he didn't recognize him. I said because it was in a completely different body. I said, let's talk about the universe. You're a chemist. Do you know that the universe is 6-dimensional and that Yahweh is 7-dimensional? He says, no, but could you explain that to me? And I did. And I said, you are a 3-dimensional construct that's stuck in the ordinary flow of time. You can maneuver in 3 dimensions, you can't in the 4th. And the big liability that you have is that you're matter. Matter is a real liability. That's why Yosha on Bakurim didn't come back as matter. He came back as energy. And energy, I said, it's like you've got a gold ring on your finger. If I had a classroom of gold and you had the gold ring, we would both have the same thing, wouldn't we? Just not the same amount of the same thing. Yosha isn't a third person in the Trinity. There is no Trinity. It's Babylonian. He is a diminished manifestation of Yahweh. And let me explain how that works. Yahweh is 7-dimensional. I said, have you ever considered the relationship between Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse? Mickey Mouse exists in a 2-dimensional realm. Walt Disney is 3. Walt Disney cannot enter Mickey Mouse's realm. It's impossible. Yahweh is 7-dimensional. He can't enter our realm. So for Yahweh to interact with us, he has 3 means of doing so. His malach, spiritual envoys and messengers. The set-apart spirit who deals with his children. And the most set apart, Kodesh, which means set apart from Yahweh and then diminished, which is why he said the Father is greater than I. Diminished, according to Einstein's, E equals mc squared. That's the diminishment from energy to equal matter. That's who he is. That's why his name is Yahusha. Now,
yes, Kodesh is set apart twice.
Yes, it's Kodesh, most set apart. The extreme of set apart. I said, now, are you familiar with what happened then on Matzah? I said, no. His soul went into Sheol. Because Pesach is about eternal life. Matzah is about perfection. His soul went into Sheol to ransom us. The following day, as Bakurim means firstborn children, he is transformed from matter into energy. His soul is reunited with the set-apart spirit. That's how he could instantly appear 60 stadia from Jerusalem on the road to Emmaus. That's why he could go from having dinner with the lads to moving through the wall of the upper room. He was now energy-based. But he could transform himself into matter, as we will be able to do, because there's certain things you can do as energy. For example, you can go explore the universe. What you can't do is matter. But once you get to a place, let's say you want to enjoy a good meal. Let's say you want to feel the coldness of a stream, the breath of wind against your face. You want to sing a song. You can't do those things unless you're matter. And so going back and forth on E equals MC squared is what Yahweh has promised as the fifth and fourth benefits of the covenant, being empowered, being enriched in this way. That's what he's promising. And you can see this person moving from, no, there's no way I could consider any of this. My faith means too much to me. I can't agree with you on that.
That was his reaction?
To now saying, early on, to now saying, I've got a week to read. These books, like each one of them looks like they're multiple weeks to read. Which one should I start with? I'll read it. Please give me your email. I will correspond with you as I read them. And I said, in your case, while you desperately need to read Questioning Paul, I don't want you to start there, because you'll be too afraid that you're going to lose something. He said, the difference between you and me, at the same stage, I said, I was an ordained elder, an ordained minister, an evangelist in Christianity. I said, the difference between you and me is I came to realize that there were conflicts within Christianity that could not be resolved, and started to question it. You aren't there yet. And so you will be petrified to lose your faith, and Questioning Paul will cause you to lose your faith. So what I would encourage you to do is read Yada Yahweh as a scientist.
That's the one I tell people to read first, too. Not Questioning Paul. Yada Yahweh.
Yeah, meet Yahweh.
Intro to God, Yada Yahweh. Yes.
Yeah.
Dig right in there.
The story that took place in Eden, and how Eden is going to be revised. We're going to come full circle as the whole earth will be transformed into the conditions of Eden. Come to understand the flood. Come to understand the creation account. Come to understand the relationship between Towrah and
Torah foundation.
Abraham and Yahweh. And he says, I understand there'll be a rebellion at the end of the millennium. And I said, yes. Do you know why? He said, no. Well, let me explain it to you. Because everything with Yahweh is so clear once you understand who he is. It ties into the same reason that Satan, the adversary, Hasatan, was deliberately allowed by Yahweh to slither into the garden. Choice is paramount. And so there had to be a credible choice. That's why he was allowed in. Well, at the end of the tribulation, the millennial celebration of the Shabbat, there will be a number of people who were born during that period. Now, those who transition from this world because they were part of the covenant into the millennial celebration of the Shabbat are all going to have the Torah written inside of them. And I went through Jeremiah 31 with them and what it says about the writing of the Torah inside of us. But there'll be people born during that period, and they need to be given the same clear choice between God and not God that the rest of us have been given. Otherwise, there's no free will. And that's why Hasatan will be left back in. And so this took place over an hour, and for that hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, I missed doing the observation show this afternoon. And I don't know if anything will come of it, but it seemed like the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And it ended by him saying, "I'll read this, and we'll correspond. I'll be back in the first week of January. Could you come in and talk with me at that time?" And he said, I don't think I'm prepared to learn Hebrew. I've told people to tell me that it's just no real incentive to learn Hebrew. What I shared with him is something that we've talked about on previous shows. That while the Christian New Testament is a mess, there are 300,000 known discrepancies of 182,000 words. That's not the case with the Torah, prophets, and Psalms. In the worst of the books, there is 1 out of every 14 words is different. That means that 13 out of 14 words is the same. And I said, now, if you will go and then do the corrections that are possible because the Dead Sea Scrolls, you cut that number by 70%. And then if you realize that the Masoretic vowel pointing occurred in the 11th century, and you just look at the letters themselves of the words and consider all the meanings that are possible in that context based upon the letters and not the vowel pointing, you're going to get up to 99.9% accuracy in terms of understanding. And because there are so many wonderful interlinears and so many wonderful online dictionaries, and they're all integrated together, you don't have to know Hebrew or speak it to be able to do these things. And so one of the things I did for folks is that the purpose of an introduction to God was to equip you, an individual who knows nothing about Hebrew, to be able to do this for yourself. To know what manuscripts are available, to understand their history and their accuracy, to have a review of Hebrew grammar. For example, there's no present or past tense. Things just simply are. They're always true.
It's the perfect foundation. The perfect
foundation. And here's this tool chest of empowering you to study this. I said, for example, you're going to encounter the actual alphabet that Yah used. And the actual alphabet that he used isn't like anything you've ever seen before because it's pictographic. The letters explain the meaning, like Yahweh's name. A hand, two people standing up, and a tent peg, which talks about the enlargement and securing of a home. Everything is explained right there for you. 22 letters, 5 of which are vowels, 17 are consonants. You're going to be given this toolbox, and then for the rest of the book, we use that toolbox on the 7 subjects that are most interesting to God. So when you're ready to verify whether or not this is true, you'll be empowered to do so. And the reason I wanted to cover that subject today, in fact, both subjects, the first subject on prostitution, was that I did not know when I began writing observations that Yahweh was so overtly focused on prostitution as a metaphor for religion and what ails mankind. And now to see it up close and personal, to see what it does to everything it touches. I'd never experienced that before, and I wanted to share that. And then second, I'm not sure there's many things that are as important as collectively putting together an intriguing fabric that says, here are the reasons you should investigate what Yahweh has to say. These are the reasons you should question what religion tells you. Because what you're going to find is religion says one thing, God says something else. Who are you going to trust? And we go over the same material in this program a lot. Mm-hmm. But the advantage of going over it and over it and over it again, after a while, we all own it. And you put yourself in a position where it just comes out of you. And when you're given the opportunity, you can share the message that is so transformative with other people. And the interesting thing is, you don't have any incentive to try to convince them. The worst thing that you could do is to have somebody be convinced for the wrong reasons, and you have to spend eternity with them. Mm-hmm. You want somebody who falls in love with the entire process, that realize, yes, this is hard, but that's what makes it fun. If it was easy, it wouldn't have any value. I'd never appreciate it. It's like being given something that you didn't work for. You can't value it. And that's the kind of people we want to spend eternity with. We began privately, Lisa, beginning this program, that you had a rough patch this week. And that something didn't go very well, an external concern. And we're not going to talk about what that concern was. And I said, I chose not to get involved because I don't need to get involved. Because you're a tough cookie. You can take care of yourself. You can take care of yourself. You are the last person I'm going to worry about. I'm just not going to worry about you. Why? Because you know Yahweh, because you're tenacious, and because there's just no reason to be concerned about you. And I said, so, you could have taken that and said, well, this person not standing up for me. Boy, what's wrong? No, I'm standing up for you.
I'm going to give you another
reason. Who you are.
I dig in my heels. Jacob. I dig in my heels.
You Jacob, yeah,
can't
absolutely.
move me. I'm firm in my place because Yahweh puts me there, and I stay connected.
Right, and because you study constantly.
Yeah.
And you're extraordinarily expressive when you learn something. And yet, you, like me, like Kirk, like Larry, like JB, if we find something that contradicts something we had thought was true previously, happy to drop it and accept where the truth lies.
Yeah, if I can verify it's true, okay, I'll drop whatever preconceived notions I had.
Right.
Hey, I love being proved wrong because I hate being wrong.
Yeah, and you know something? There are places where, like, for example, JB, you and I disagree. And I don't even want to resolve it. I don't want to resolve it. What I want to do is embrace the disagreement, because the more you think about it, the more you come to understand, and the more you realize that being dogmatic is not the answer. Right is about understanding. Exactly. Yeah. It's not getting 100 on the test. It's about understanding, and what the advantage of sometimes saying, I think it could be interpreted either way. I think both have merit. And that's by design, so you can appreciate something. For example, you look at Yosha as the Passover lamb, and yet dining on the Passover lamb the night previous, which is the same day. Okay, well, how is that possible? Well, it's because the whole Hebrew calendar was specifically designed for that one event. Everything was designed for that one event.
For that singular event. Yes.
Right, singular event. It's part of this idea is you say, okay, wouldn't you think that Yahweh, being light, would want the day to start with the sunrise? Okay, well, if you just go that far, sure. But do you think he wants his day to end in the blackness of night? And the darkest hours before the sunrise? That's when it's the darkest?
Yes.
Is that where he's taking us? No. But if the day begins at sundown and it ends at the very brightest time of the day, the sun is so bright there on the horizon. Well, it's a marvelous way for the day to flow. And so, there's just so many things that are worth thinking about, like when.
Let me ask you a question, Craig. Would you rather to have a nice glass of wine with your wife at sunset, watch a beautiful sunset,
yeah,
or would you rather do it at sunup when the light is blaring in your face and you're sleepy
sun
discombobulated?
Yeah, sunset, absolutely.
Romantic.
And
all couples throughout history find it romantic.
There's a romance that's associated with the fire, the warmth of that fire, and the light of that fire, and the kind of the way that the fire has a life all to itself.
Painting that occurs only once
and the way it dances off the trees, and the things that are surrounding it, and the sound of the crackle, and all of that. It's a marvelous time.
Yes, and you see, Yahweh's a poet too, and the painter.
Right, and and even sleep. Finally at the end of the day, say this was a wonderful day, and I get to lay down now and rest and be recharged in the morning. Yeah,
you mean you get to shalom? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, peace. Yeah, a little rest. Recharge. It's marvelous. So, anyway, long story. When I wanted to share those two stories,
Great story though.
Yeah, it was
story number one. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Who is the first kind of harlot that interacts with Israel? Her name is Rahab, no?
Yeah.
Yes. Rahab recognized that Yahweh was a powerful, that God was with the Israelites, that Yahweh was with his people.
Right.
And she spared the spies, and thus was spared.
Right.
However, Rahab, she also represents something else. Ra. If you look at the word as a compound word, Ra, evil,
Ra.
Ab, people.
Right.
or
evil father. Yeah, evil father.
Evil father.
Yeah, Ra is
and I know where Rahab
is the principal Hebrew word for evil.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you can apply it to both rabbis, and you can apply it to whom lives in her house today, and that would be Muslims. Mm-hmm. And funny that one has a very deep connection to another, honestly.
Of course. Allah was modeled after Satan.
Yes. If you look at Judaism and their Talmud, their Torah, and the Quran, they're not very much off other than, to hate the Jews. But they're more similar than they are unalike.
Yeah. The Christian Jesus was created by Paul. It's a caricature. That's why in Shabbat, Yahweh specifically condemns Paul for creating this caricature, because his Jesus Christ is a caricature based upon Dionysus, so entirely demonic, a character created by a man who was demon-possessed.
Yes, we're back to a
God
dead God on
religion.
a stick.
I'm proud of it.
Yeah, as I say, Roman Catholicism is God on a stick. God on a stick.
A dead God.
Jose.
A dead one.
Yes. Dead God on a stick.
Did he die for you? No.
No, because he didn't die.
No.
As a matter of fact, in the middle of Shabbat, Shabbat says, what in the world is wrong with these people?
How can they think you can die?
Yeah, what's wrong with them? That is a sense of humor. All right, so this we're now in around 217. I'm not exactly sure we should pick this up, but 217 seems to be a good place. Yahweh has returned, and he's dealing with humanity as he finds them. And the first things first, his children are radiating his life. We're full of joy. We're celebrating the return of his home as light to the summit of Mount Moriah, and we're all witnessing this with just great joy and literally energy-based entities. But Yahweh says, you guys are family. I mean, we're all here and enjoying the home, but we got a clean house. And I want to tell you that the religious and political leaders, the academic leaders, those whose precious cargoes are on the ships of Tarshish, the United States shipping its weapons of death around the world. It was interesting today that Donald Trump said that he welcomes a nuclear arms race with China and Russia. And I know some of you are pro-Trump. For the President-elect of the United States to say, I welcome a nuclear arms race with Russia and China because America will win is criminally insane.
Who wins in a nuclear war?
Let me just. I want to say.
I like that.
Kirk,
it's criminally insane.
Lisa, JB,
it's
and
not
I
just
all have
insane.
a nuclear bomb.
It's criminal.
And I send my nuclear bomb against Kirk. Kirk sends his against JB. JB, you send yours against Lisa.
Yes.
And Lisa, you send yours against. You send yours against.
This sounds like a Mexican standoff to me.
Who won?
Yeah, this never works out well.
Okay, now I'm going to
give you another example.
Lisa is the clever one. Her bomb was 10 times bigger than my bomb. And
yes,
JB, your bomb was twice the size of Kirk's bomb. I still said, who won?
No one.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. You ship them, you send them all up in the air, and they all come down and fall on you. Who wins? Everybody still has to breathe the same air.
Yeah,
it does circulate.
Yeah,
drink
right.
water and eat the same
you
nutrients.
You just blow up yourself. It's still going to be the same result.
The
nuclear winner.
Saudi Arabia held a summit and sent a bunch of envoys to Trump to explain that America's invasion of Iraq created this crescent of power for Shia Islam, and that the ultimate crowning of that power was when Russia joined Assad and teamed with Hezbollah and Iran to take over what's left of Aleppo. And that having recaptured Aleppo, that now Iran controls all of Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, because we gave it to them, and Iran. And so Saudi Arabia said, you know, Trump, your promise is to create jobs in America. Nothing creates more jobs than making weapons. Make those weapons and sell them to us.
It's the one thing America still actually produces. It's part of the reason, like you look at some of, we talked about it before, the Joint Strike Fighter and all that.
Yeah, that's exactly
the reason those exist is
yeah.
because so many companies, our economy would crumble if we canceled those contracts.
It's
and our economy is going to crumble because we're making those, fulfilling those contracts.
We're damned if we do and damned if we don't.
Yeah, we'll call her the hammer.
We're damned by doing. We wouldn't be damned by not doing. But the fact is that it is the dominant industry now in America.
Yeah.
And we are the
Well, I don't think we would have a
foreign
policy if we did control the all those things to begin with, because we use it as a weapon to keep them in line. We don't have any other negotiating skill.
That is correct. The United Nations today laid out an edict, speaking of politics and mankind, thumbing their nose at God. It does not say thumbing their nose at God. Poking God in the eye, and said that rather than condemn the viciousness of fundamentalist Muslims and the onslaught between the civil war between Shia and Sunni Muslims that has left millions and millions as refugees, that have caused tens of thousands of little girls to be sold as sex slaves and to be gang raped, to have perpetrated terrorist events around the world. Rather than condemn that and this horrible inhumanity that is taking place in the Islamic world, the mutilation of little girls and their genitals, the fact that no women have any rights in Islam. Rather than condemn that, you know what they condemned? They said that Israel is to be condemned because they build houses. Yeah, they build houses. They are to be condemned.
Nothing evil like building houses.
And what did the United States do? The great ally of Israel. We abstained. The abominator.
Now that's stand enough to protect somebody, isn't it?
Oh, God.
You bad Jews, don't you build houses?
Right.
On the other side, while Trump is poking the bear.
What is Yahweh's single greatest love?
His family.
Yeah, building a home for his family, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's his single greatest passion. Where is he going to build his house?
Right in Jerusalem.
The United Nations ought to be right there condemning him because that's part of the disputed territory. The United Nations.
I'm sure if they were still around, they would condemn him for it.
They would be. These are the people that Yahweh is saying.
Put a house there.
Yeah. So this is what they're saying. God is saying to them, and the arrogant man, those who would be so arrogant to say, "My people can't build homes in my land, the home in my land. The arrogant man shall bow down in submission after being brought down and humbled and then reduced in stature. And the rebellious nature and the spatial dimensions of men shall be diminished. So approaching the set-apart aspect of Yahweh will be inaccessible that day, which is his day." Now, we've talked a lot about the end of that, his day, because this line is used elsewhere in this testimony. My day is Pesach, Matzah, Bokurim, Shabbat. That's my day. Yeah, those are my days. His day is Yom Kippur. He's only getting something as a consequence of his gift. He's the giver on Pesach, Matzah, Bokurim, and Shabbat. 100% of the benefits of those days are given from him to us, his children. On Towrah, we engage together and do a whole lot of hollering. But on Yom Kippurim, it's all about what Yahweh gets. He gets his family reconciled. It's his day.
Yes.
It's his day. The day that he's most excited about. You know, Larry's, I'm not feeling a little under the weather, so he's listening. The day that Larry likes best, because why? Because it's the day that's, Yahweh likes best. Yeah, you know, and Lisa, it's appropriate for you to like it best because you are part of the Yehudim.
I'm giving away my hand here. Yep, I'm going to like it the best.
Being reconciled.
You're the natural born.
I'm far more excited about being adopted and perfected and being immortal, but I'm mostly excited about being enriched and empowered. But I recognize those are benefits for me. And because my dad is giving them to me, there's nothing wrong with me celebrating them. It's marvelous.
Absolutely nothing.
But Yom Kippurim is his day. That's because on Yom Kippurim, he is receiving, he's not giving. Yom Kippurim is not
it's
about
the ultimate Father's Day.
Yeah,
it is
the ultimate Father's Day.
Yeah, it is. It's the ultimate Father's Day. Absolutely. That's why it's his day. All right. You know what's interesting about, well, there's a lot of things interesting about Yahweh. The thing that I find the most interesting about Yahweh is that he's humble. He's approachable.
Very much.
Yeah, it's just amazing that you be the creator God of the universe. You're a seven-dimensional construct. And in dealing with your creation, you're humble. You're never flashy.
Deal with me.
Yeah, you're never flashy. You never showboat. You could, if you wanted to, just annihilate everybody that says anything stupid. You could go and boom your voice from the highest mountain. I mean, you have reason to show off, but you don't. Ever.
You know, I was thinking about that today.
Because then you would just look like any other deity. Honestly.
Yeah, any false god. Yeah, the flashy ones. You were saying, Kirk?
Well, no, I was thinking about that very thing today, and I was thinking about George Foreman when he was the champion of the world boxer.
Yeah.
He would not have to go into a bar and try to pick a fight to prove to everybody he can whoop everybody's butt. I mean, you know, that when you know you are and who you are.
Right.
I'm not saying he's humble because of it. It's just to him, it's a natural state of being. He knows.
Yeah.
He knows that he knows, and he knows that everybody knows. He ain't got to prove nothing.
Right, you looked at Muhammad Ali, and because he wanted,
he had to say it all the time.
he tried intimidating people, and he won it by alley-ooping and all of that rope-a-dope, and he always had his showboaty things. He was always conceited.
Yeah.
Very much the navel
Muhammad Ali,
gazer.
who was a Muslim, like all of Islam, including Allah, stunningly conceited. But George Foreman became popular. The reason that George Foreman was able to endorse so many things is he was a humble guy.
I love him.
Now, and I'm going to tell you, I think the comparison is interesting. Of course, George Foreman and Yahweh don't bear anything in common other than George Foreman, though.
No, but I mean, as a human being, as a human trait, he does
straightforward. Right, straightforward power. You want to deal with me? I'm stronger than you are.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Muhammad Ali wasn't just
power.
Muslim, though. He was Nation of Islam. That's like Muslim to an absurd, insane degree.
Yeah. On steroids.
That's way out there.
Yeah, it's even. Well, I don't know. How could you be worse than Islam? I mean, okay. So you're talking about shades of
waiting for the mother wheel.
Okay, yeah, I know, but you're right. But it's interesting.
White people were created by a big-headed scientist.
Almost universally, men who are enriched, powerful politically, powerful in terms of their esteem in sports, men who are spokespeople that do announcing and that sort of presidents, they all were impressed by and loved being around Muhammad Ali because of this bigger-than-life persona. And so God's talking about that. Arrogant man. Arrogant man shall bow down in submission. Because what does arrogant man want to do? What do people in power want to do? They want people to
bow down to them.
They want people to bow down to them.
So here is
he
Yahweh,
wants to exalt himself the same way that whore wants to exalt herself by being a chameleon to everyone in a position higher than her does.
Yeah, I had a person write me.
Only she's more efficient.
Saying it's unfair, it's inappropriate to suggest that we don't have a leader, and I think the inference was that I'm supposed to be the leader. I'm not the leader. I'm not the leader. And when somebody, they think, well, you're just, being humble by saying that, that there's nothing you would have to impress anybody. You're flawed like everybody else. You just enjoy being part of the family. I don't say that because it might sound good. I say it because it's true. Once you come to know that Yahweh, my dad, who's the creator of the universe, author of life, the one who composed the Torah and the prophets, the one who is capable of empowering us and enriching us and who protects me, he's humble. So to be arrogant, recognizing the difference between us, when he's humble, I mean, you're talking about, you'd have to be unbelievably stupid, irrational, out of touch with reality to take that approach.
Yeah.
Well,
a simple answer to that is like...
Right. Arrogant man, was going to humble. People who know their relative place. And listen, I've got a huge ego. My ego is not in me. My ego is in whom I know and who knows me. My ego is the understanding of the most important thing in the universe. But the arrogant, he's going to humble. Those who know our role, he's going to empower. It's just so fair. But
yes, because Yahweh is always for the oppressed, because the ones who rise up to the top are just like their master, Baal.
Right, they are.
Baal.
Yeah, want to
upside
lord
down,
over
inside
people.
out, right side up a lie.
Right, they want to lord over people.
Can I say,
they want people to submit to them.
Quick thing?
Yeah.
Interesting thing this week, I found an Aramaic word that I've never heard before. It's Yabal. And I was like, wow, that's intriguing. And then I looked at the absolute meaning. And it means being dragged or carried along.
The hand of the Lord.
By a much
Yabal
greater
the
force.
hand of the Lord. The hand of Satan.
God.
Yeah, the hand of Satan.
Yeah.
Yabal.
Wow.
Hand of Satan.
And they kind of all act like that. Let me lord over you.
That's right.
And
the hand of
something
Satan.
will lord over me.
But it's interesting when you and this is the problem that people just don't understand, that the God of Christianity, the God of Judaism, the God of Islam, the God of politics, the God of socialist secular humanism, is Satan. But it's not Satan as Satan. It's Satan pretending to be God. It's not Satan as the prince of darkness. It's Satan as the fake light.
As the light bringer.
Correct.
Lucifer.
As the enlightenment for secular humanists, as Allah for the Muslims, as Adonai for the Jews, as Christ for the Christians.
That is correct. Yeah,
never wanted to be anything but that. The Luciferians, they're a loose cannon,
all worshiping the devil under the guise of God.
Yeah.
I want to say, allow me to say something just for a minute in regards to that person, because I've been hanging around you for a long time now, and I appreciate that you have an amazing skill set. I mean, it is unique. You've become a hell of a writer as well. I mean, just in this little paragraph alone, you can see the definition of diminishing in the form of multiple dimensions in the writing that we didn't probably see 10 years ago because of influence of Roy and so on. But at no time have I ever felt like you didn't appreciate what any of us say, contribute. The discussion has always been open. It's not like you get to be a big shot by putting us down or something like that, because there's never any of that. It's just been a friendly place to be and exchange ideas and contribute whatever we can. So
I was thinking, Kirk, this on my drive on the way up about Jackie. I don't know how many of you really know Jackie.
Oh, I know
Jackie is a woman I've never met, except the email that we correspond. Jackie has come to know Yahowah to the point that she's not just capable of editing the books, she could write them. And Kirk, you've come to understand the meaning of Hebrew words, and many words, better than I know them. And Larry has a better command of what's the right line to use at this particular time. Lisa has this extraordinary sense of passion and commitment that comes from being Jacob-like and doing the study. And JB has right from the beginning had this proper sense of who Yahweh is, what He's offering, and knowing immediately what resonates and what does not. Mm-hmm. And you know something? Knowing that by us being together and learning together, that everyone has come to grow and to learn and to contribute is a far greater sense of success, brings far more joy than anything else. If you all contribute something that is unique to our understanding, it's much more enjoyable than if I were to come up with it. It's just like when your children succeed, you're far happier about that than personal success. Now, the one thing I want to disagree with you, if I could, Kirk.
Sure.
I don't think I'm a good writer. I don't think that I have unique or profound insights. I just think that it is a natural derivative of being willing to invest the time in Yahweh's testimony, that if you do it with an open mind, and you do it with family, and you share what you learn with family, and you think about what He said, that it is the consequence of those things. It is the byproduct of doing those things. So, for example, yes, I have learned a lot about dimensionality from Roy, beyond what I would have known on my own. It's no question about that. But Roy didn't come to understand it apart from reading Yada Yahweh in the first place.
Right, how to apply it.
So he came to an understanding of who Yahweh is, and it resonated with him. And then he came to say, well, there's some things here that I can add to this equation. He shared them with us, and then we added things back and forth to the point that all of us have grown.
Yes.
That's
so
what
the promise is true, isn't it?
We all
add
our own perspective and our own way of viewing things. And, my perspective will see things that your perspective won't, and your perspective sees things that my perspective don't. But we all, like you said, it resonates with us. You point something out that I may not have seen. I go, wow, how did I miss that? But, that's obvious.
Yeah. But and then the connection.
Oh my God! Do I feel like a servant? Just kidding.
And this is what's really important.
We work with Yahweh.
I would not want, and I don't think any of us want, or ever even encourage anyone to agree with us or to accept our perspective. Why? Because the very fact we have different perspectives on the same profound truth that is Yahweh enriches the family. The reason that eternity is going to be so extraordinary is we are going to go into it with our aptitudes and our proclivities and our attitudes and our personalities are all wrapped up in our souls. And the last thing Yahweh wants is all of us to be the same, because what fun would that be?
Yeah.
Because we're not in Mitzrayim anymore. We don't have to be slaves.
Right. What fun would it be for everyone just to agree on everything? That's, we can both be right and disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's richer when we do. We don't disagree on the big stuff. We know Yahweh's name and why it's important. We know who Yosha was. We know what the 7 Moed Mikre mean. We know what the conditions of the covenant are and what the benefits are. And we know that Yahweh's fixation is on building a family, and He has only one covenant, and that Torah is teaching and guidance. It doesn't mean law, and that He wants us to be together as family. There's no disagreement on the big picture, but how the elements fit together. We have different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
What enriches the family.
It's like you talked about earlier. People saying that, you're obviously the leader. When I come across something new that I haven't read from you, or I've never come across before, do I email you about it? Yeah, because I want to share. But it's never in terms of I just read this, and I was thinking this. Is it okay for me to think that? It's hey, I read this, and this occurred to me. I think this is really interesting. I thought I'd share it with you.
Yeah. I get probably an email every day from someone who has analyzed some aspect of Yahweh's testimony. I'm going to give you one. This was a few weeks ago, but someone wrote me and said, I think I have a different dimension, different explanation for the dimensions of the ark in terms of its width, its height, and its length. And it has to do with the fact that it's 3. I think it's, wasn't it 313 or 353? Whatever. I've forgotten even the numbers of it. But and this person went through and said it pertains to the 7 Moed Mikre, and so do the 3 doors, because there's the 3 in the beginning, the 1 in the middle, and the 3 at the end. And it went through and just had this beautiful analysis of it, and you just read it and say, yeah, never thought of it that way, but yes, absolutely, that makes sense, and it happens every day.
Yeah, I think I read that one. That was a good one.
Yeah.
If Yahweh's building a house for his children, we're all brothers and sisters. Whether you're Goyim, Yahud, whatever you are, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You got through the door.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about this father-child relationship is that Yahweh recognizes that while it is really enjoyable, like I have a little granddaughter, and I just love getting down on the floor, and we play dollies, and we play kitchen, and she's just a sweetheart, and I know I'm down there playing tea with her and playing dollies with her. And I'm not a tea dolly kind of guy. But I tell you, with my little granddaughter, it's a joy. I have really fun. I'll crawl around on my knees and push her on the alphabet train, all the way through my basement, and we'll play a baby stroller. I love it. But
and if you have a grandson, you're going to push him on a bike and do something maybe a little different.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, right. Now, with my, I have 2 sons. I spent these last 3 days down in Texas with my youngest son. We have a very different relationship. We don't play dollies. We don't play kitchen.
So comforting.
I'd be a little worried if your 20-something son played dollies with you.
Yeah, doesn't play dollies. We don't play. But we have profound discussions. We engage in life. We work together. We love one another. We have profound talks. And we'll go right after one another when we disagree. But the quality of the relationship and the enjoyment is much greater than playing dolly with my granddaughter. And, this is like comparing, for me, chocolate cake with chocolate chip ice cream. They're both really good. But the point I wanted to make is that while I'm sure Yahweh enjoys our present relationship, where we're not a lot different than my granddaughter in terms of communicative and reasoning skills between us and Yahweh, that is not where he wants the relationship to endure. That's why we're being lifted up, enriched, and empowered, and we're growing together so that we become adults in his family. Sons and daughters,
really,
yes, but
really
adult sons and daughters. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, and that's the joy, is that growing part of it. We all started off on the, minute scale of, trying to read Scripture and come to know God like an infant, and now we're on the,
we move
closer and closer every day to the level where we can converse with him directly.
Yeah, well, he couldn't
like,
even talk about
look at Abraham's relationship. When he was Abram, when he first, first approached him, the communication was very limited, but it grew every time as the relationship grew. Like a child growing up and became able to converse with their parent on, adult.
Every one of us knew Yahweh to a less extent than Abraham. Abraham's knowledge and understanding is not impressive. It's never impressive. Never. At no time is Abraham's knowledge and understanding of Yahweh impressive. Doe's understanding and knowledge of Yahweh, now that's impressive.
Overwhelming.
But not Abraham. But if I look at where
Imagine Kirk, for God's sake.
Hi, Larry. Yeah, imagine Kirk. Hi, Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Yeah, now if you can imagine, though,
Hey, Larry.
Where we were, each of us, 10 to 15 years ago. We were on the south side of Abraham. We were still back there in in Babylon. And yet, over these past, whatever it is, 5, 10, 15 years, we've actually come to exceed Abraham's understanding and knowledge of Yahweh. All of us. Now, at this point, I don't think any of us are near Dode's understanding.
But we're getting closer every day.
We're getting closer every day, and of course, he's given us the guidance to take us along, because Dode didn't want to maintain a position of leader. He wanted family too. And so he has shared everything that he came to know so that we can come along and be there shoulder to shoulder with him. And we're making progress every day towards that same level of understanding. That's the whole nature of it.
Yes, Dode wanted to make a family so bad he had 7 different wives.
Yeah, well, I figured out why the Jews are so smart.
Yeah.
Dode slept with everybody. His son, Solomon, was brilliant. He slept with everybody. He had, 900 concubines and wives?
Yeah, I guess so,
the DNA just went everywhere. So.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, the two smartest people who ever lived. Two smartest, Dode in particular.
And having lots of babies. So
yeah,
you got to have, you got to have a group.
Because Solomon got good parenting. When Yahweh asked him what he wanted.
Yes.
And Solomon didn't say power. He didn't say riches. He didn't say even happiness or success. When he said, what I want is greater understanding. And I want to use that understanding to know who you are and what you want. I want to understand.
That's what I want.
So he was nurtured
and he
by
wanted
the
to judge
father,
rightly
by
in
Dode.
Israel.
Yeah. And so that's what he chose. And Yahweh's response is, because you chose understanding, I'll give you the rest. Now, apply that to us, even to Larry. Because you chose understanding, I'm going to give you the rest. That's where we all are. I'm just poking fun at you, Larry. It's good to hear your voice.
I know. You pick on that poor man. He's not feeling well.
I know.
Yeah, no, he went back to sit down. He went
back to sit down just after. So we're sitting there trying to poke fun at him, and he's already sitting back down. What fun is that?
Wasted a great shot.
Yeah.
He just had to come on long enough to show us all that he has a better voice than us.
Well, of course.
He does. But think about that for a moment. Think about the idea that here Yahweh asked this man, what is it you want? I'm God Almighty. I can give you anything you want. I could give you a harem full of the most beautiful women in the world. I could give you so much money that you could buy the rest of the world. I could give you the most powerful army in the history of humankind. I could give you the largest kingdom that man has ever known. What do you want? I want understanding. And Yahweh's response is, because you have chosen understanding, I will give you everything else. So what does that tell you about what Yahweh prioritizes? Faith, power, money, sex?
Understanding.
Right discernment.
Which is relational.
Right, understanding. Now, is it possible to understand without knowing?
No,
it's not. Is it possible to understand if you know, but you don't make the connections?
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's not okay for you.
Deeply. Not on a deep
By the way,
level.
you can know. Here I was talking with a man with a PhD today. He knew a lot of stuff, but he didn't understand. You can know a lot of stuff and not understand.
Now you're talking about the entire Jewish population here.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. They know a lot of stuff.
A lot of knowledge,
very few
understanding.
Well, not even just the Jews, Christians too. They have the knowledge is at their fingertips.
Right.
How
could you carry around a book?
Yeah, they have the Torah right there, but they choose
how could
not
you call
to understand
it. Exactly, JB. How could you, if you had any understanding, haul around a book where the accent at the end of it contradicts everything in the first 80% of it, and you think it's the inerrant word of God, and yet you think that the contradiction at the end of it, which you can't even see as a contradiction, negates
somehow
everything else you
justifiable.
carry. Yeah, everything else that is there, you think has been negated, and you carry it around as the inerrant Word of God, and you can't see how
and ignorance go hand in hand.
You know, the ultimate question that I kept on asking Christians is, how is it that you believe that the God who created the universe had to pick this man and then inspired him to contradict everything he had said?
Yeah. I'm gonna put
how is that
forth.
even remotely rational?
Yeah, maybe it's the wrong question. Perhaps because of who you met today, the whore, the vicious.
Yeah.
Vicious. Everything she touches turns toxic.
Right. Toxic.
Been seduced.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yes. And she embedded her thorn into a guy named Shaul, Sheol, Paul, Paulos, Apollyon, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
And she dragged you right to the Asherah tree and put it up in front of your kids to bow down before.
Yeah.
You know, there's two words I learned this week: Yabal, which is Aramaic, which means to be dragged and carried away by a greater force, and Obal, which means to manage or care for camels. Now, both are Baal, two different whores.
Yeah. You ever been around a camel?
Same. Yeah. Oh.
You ever tried to ride a camel?
You know
or been around a camel?
everything, including cars. They eat cars.
You know, the difference between a camel and a jackass.
Are you?
A jackass is stubborn. A jackass is stubborn. A camel's mean.
Oh, very vicious.
A jackass is not a clean animal, but not dirty. A camel is filthy. A camel will spit at you, will bite you, and it is a disgusting animal.
In the Middle East, you cannot park your car in certain places where there are camels because it'll eat your tires, your glass, your interior, your everything.
Of course, yeah.
Anything.
It's a tall pig. It's a tall pig.
Very tall pig. And very stinky
at
too.
the risk of sounding like just a follower, a windbot, I guess is what the term people like to use, I'm going to say, you said it best. To be religious requires one of two things. You are either ignorant or you were irrational.
That's correct.
And that sums it up
both.
perfectly.
Yeah. In fact, that was part of the things that I told this person today as I was talking to this PhD. I said, you cannot be a Muslim or a Christian and be rational. It requires a person. He was saying he was willing to agree. He says, how come there could be any Muslims when the Quran is so obviously untrue? And I said, because there are no rational and informed Muslims. But that's the same thing with every religion. It's impossible to be an informed and rational Christian. Impossible.
And the
are you going to be motivated by faith or
very small number? Those are the ones that there is still hope for, are the ignorant, because those are the ones where when you provide them with the information, they can process it and leave religion. Yeah, but that is a very small percentage.
Yeah, but the problem is that most people who are ignorant today do not have the will nor the skill set, to process information and the devotion to move through the information to find the truth. Yeah, most people who are ignorant are willfully ignorant because it's easier to be ignorant. And it's
I've met very, very, very few who fall into that category where they were ignorant, and once you present them with the evidence and the reasoning and you cure the ignorance. Once you cure the ignorance, they are willing to accept it. That is a very, very few people.
Speaking of information and a lack of information that leads to ignorance. Hi, Craig.
Hi.
I was looking at Skopje. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the capital of Macedonia.
The capital of Macedonia.
Yeah.
Skopje, I think is how it's pronounced.
Skopje, okay. This
I think that's
beautiful.
Now,
Beautiful
I'm
place.
a lousy person in pronunciation, so I could be wrong, but I think it's Skopje. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but here, I want to just point something out to why you're so, another couple points as to why you're so correct. You know where Mother Teresa was born, obviously.
Yeah, Macedonia.
Right there. Right. They're upper class. They call themselves the Bohemians. They're the Bohemians. You got to love this. And as you know, there's a giant cross overlooking the city.
Yeah. And you know what the largest
then
mural is in the largest church in Skopje?
No. Shoot.
Satan.
Satan. That's right. That's
Satan.
right. The name of it, Satan. That's right. No.
Really?
This is beautiful. You know what their most prized possession is? I mean, this is the kicker.
Well, they're very patriotic. You know what their flag is?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. It's a rising sun. But their most prized possession is a clay figure of a man. And guess what its name is? This is going to be the kicker of all.
What is it?
Olos.
Adam.
Oh, Adam.
Adam.
Oh, because he's clay.
Wow, made of clay.
Yeah.
This is no kidding.
Wow.
And he's got no head. I mean, it's just like a torso. I'm looking at it right now. It's just, I wanted to share that.
What you're missing is that we are mortal creatures. We're physical creatures. We're limited because of our physical nature. And what he's saying is we are comprised of the elements. That is, our bodies are comprised of the elements. And then he goes on to say you have a soul, and which is the most valued aspect of your nature. Clay figurine does not have a soul. You have a soul.
No,
and I'm going to give you this
not.
nephesh, this conscience, so that your soul can choose after thoughtful investigation and contemplation that your soul can choose to be part of my family.
What a
that's
tremendous
what I gave
gift.
you. Right.
But I'm just talking about the
corruption
corruption
and
the obvious counterfeit. The
the
counterfeit
elements
is so
that Adam was comprised
insane.
of is meaningless. What's important is this breath of life, the soul, and the nephesh conscience is what was special, and they missed all of it.
Oh, well, yeah, sure, but I'm just saying the counterfeit, and it's named Adam. I'm just saying,
Adam. Yeah.
There are so many fingers pointing at Skopje, and then you've got, you've got these statues of Alexander the Great, or I'm assuming that's what it is.
Yeah.
It is just insanely in your face. And anyway,
it is.
and
their national
as
anthem,
you know,
by
I
the way,
can't
is
stay in a seat
an ode to the sun.
Yeah,
their national anthem is an ode to the sun.
How
yes, it is. It starts right out. We children of the sun rising sun will be victorious.
Right.
And I'm going, what?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I just wanted to point out how accurate you were when you picked.
Alexander the Great was the epitome of human greatness and leadership. He was a
monster.
Oh yeah,
he
represented mankind very well.
Right, he was a monster.
But anyway, I wanted to get on and just say that, and I've got to get out of this chair because if I'm going to get better, I have to rest it. But it's nice talking to you guys, and I just wanted to throw that out there and tell you again how highly accurate you were as to where the beast will come from.
Yeah, it is great to hear your voice, by the way. I missed your voice.
I know, isn't it? It's like this.
It is good to hear your voice.
You know, I mean,
we would all love to have your voice. Yeah, we're all envious. Well, we covet your voice.
You got to work on that coveting thing there.
Yeah,
Craig.
I know.
Thanks.
Him and Ken Powers. Those are the two voices I wish I would have.
Oh, I know. Ken Powers got a great voice.
I would love either one of their voices.
Yeah, if I had Larry's voice, I could boom it across the neighborhood, you know?
Yeah, you've got a good voice, though.
Yeah.
You have a really good voice.
You wouldn't need a microphone.
You got to find nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. You know one of the people that I love their voice, too, is William the Elevator Man. William the Elevator Man, he has a really engaging voice. I just love his voice. Yeah, there's something.
Can I
there's
ask
a tenor
you a question?
To voices. Mm-hmm.
Do you know in Latin what Skopje is named after?
No, I don't.
Skopje. It means spear.
Oh, okay.
Spears. Last I
That's
understand,
fitting.
spears cut. Don't they?
The murder
They
weapon.
pierce. They cut.
Yeah, beer is kind of an
it
interesting.
was a
Yeah, I don't
Roman
think God's got
sword.
anything against beer, actually. But beer is actually the elixir of civilization. Without beer, there is no civilization. Beer is the only thing that enables humanity to
with an S.
With an S. Spear.
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 Instrument.
Spear. Oh, yeah, that would make sense
Spear.
because of Alexander of Macedon in his that phalanx, which was nothing but spears pointed out. They had that longer thrusting spear, and they all got together so that the opposing spears and arrows could not penetrate the phalanx, and yet their spears would be able to penetrate the enemy. Yeah, so spear would be directly associated with Alexander's battle tactics. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And they will. What can you do with the spear? You can divide, you can conquer, right?
Right, you cut.
You can divide
pierce.
even the land
you
if
pierce.
you want.
You pierce, yeah. Yeah, it's nothing wrong with a spear or a sword or a knife, and that cutting is an essential element of discernment, of separation. It's just, like the covenant, for example, is karat, the Hebrew word for cut. And
cut in or cut out.
There's nothing. Yeah,
they
cut in or
represent
cut out.
war. They are weapons of war, and Yahweh is very much.
But I look at it this way: Yaakov I have loved, and karat he'll cut. Yahweh will cut a covenant with Yaakov.
Right.
But
Yahweh.
I've been translating the book of Yahusha, chapter 5, and I found it interesting that one of the things Yahweh specifies is that the Yehudi were not allowed to enter the promised land until all of the men of war had died.
Right, correct. That's why he told Dode.
That's pretty telling of what Yahweh views of war.
Right. When you know this because we've talked about it before, JB. But when Yahweh talked to the man that he loved more than anyone else, Dode, who had assembled all of the materials necessary to build his house, and Yahweh said, "Dode, you're not going to build it." And he didn't say you're not going to build it because you had your general killed so that you could get Bathsheba, his wife. You can't build it because you had this large harem. You can't build it because you were a rascal. No, you can't build it because you
were a man of war.
Right, you're a man of war.
But if you think about the decision in the millennial Shabbat, yes, some of those men, those prodigal sons that will come home, they will be men of war. But they will die before their children will have to make that decision. It's the same pattern.
Yeah. There are, if you look at Yahweh's, war, even when the children of Israel were coming into the promised land, you look at Jericho. They didn't have to thrust spears or amass an army.
Yahweh did.
Just walk around the place, beat your drum, blow your trumpet. And God is just not a God of war. I mean, there are places where He says this needs to be done, but that's the family protection thing. It's this is my home. This is where I want my children to live, and I don't want a bunch of rats here that are infected with the plague because that's not conducive to my family. So I want you to get rid of the rats. But He's not a God of war. He's not. Killing is not appealing to Him. Unless the only way that He can support family and life is to rid His home of that disease, because the host of religion, the host of war is man. When He returns, as a passage in Yahshua in the 2nd chapter that we went over a few days ago or a few weeks ago, where Yahweh specifically says that the Goyim will never teach war again, and that their weapons of war are going to be turned into tools that can be used to work the fields and produce food, which is nurturing as opposed to deadly.
Right.
Yeah, it shows you what his whole mindset is. That's why when people equate their military and godliness and the service in the military with doing God's word and God protect our troops and save our troops and all that kind of stuff, you're like, no. God is universally opposed to war and to killing. And every soldier throughout time has always felt that God was on their side, and that there's no atheist, they say, in foxholes. Well, you're never going to find God there. He doesn't take a side in war. He's opposed to both sides.
And He particularly addresses the house of Yehuda and says, you've corrupted the court systems, you've oppressed, you've done this, and you've turned your sons into killers.
Right, and when he's telling Yisrael as to why Saul is a bad choice, why government is a bad choice. It all revolves around, and it begins with, he will take your sons and turn them into soldiers. Then he will take your money and turn it into weapons of war. And then when he has your sons and these weapons, he will deploy them for his own personal aggrandizement. And then the plunder that comes from that confiscated wealth, he will use to bribe loyalists that will insulate him from rebellion. That's what they do.
Sounds a bit like the American government.
Yeah, and by the way, God said
all
that by doing that, they are rejecting me by doing that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can choose. That's why I'm so vehemently opposed to standing at the national anthem or saluting the flag. I'm not telling you that anybody else has to. I am vehemently opposed to it. I'm vehemently opposed to the U.S. military. Because the choice that God is saying is you can either choose.
And salute the blood-soaked flag. That makes sense.
You don't know it has the star of, the pennant, what is it, the 5-pointed star.
Yeah,
and then when it started, they put 13 of them in a ring. I mean, whose symbol is this?
Yeah, Satan's. And, of course, the symbol of America is the eagle, which is Rome.
Yeah, the eagle,
Rome. But what people attribute their military to providing their freedoms, liberating them, providing their freedoms. So are you going? Is it the military that you think is protecting you?
From whom?
My military is from whom?
Well, that always drove me crazy, just because I'm a big history buff, and I love to point out, read the Declaration of Independence. Read the Constitution. Where does it say that our freedoms come from? Not from our military. They are inherent
from the people,
given to us by our Creator. So, like people, God bless the military. I won't forget the men who died to give my freedom to me. No.
Read your
and the idea that they defend your freedom, you're just an idiot. You've never read history if you think the American military defends your freedom.
Or any military of any country ever.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world, any time in history.
They will all claim it in the name of their God.
Yeah. Militaries have always existed for the empowered, to keep them empowered, and to rob others so that they can expand their kingdoms.
That's one thing Thomas Jefferson had right. The greatest threat to the freedom of a people is a standing army.
Actually, Jefferson...
He kind of got that one from Yahweh.
Yeah, Jefferson made it that it was the... he did say that the greatest threat was a standing military, was an established military. He also, on another occasion, said that the greatest threat was a central bank. So his view was that the central bank and the military collectively were the greatest threats, and they are intertwined. The reason for central banks is to finance the military.
You can't have one without the other.
Finance war. Right. Countries don't deficit spend unless they're supporting an overreaching military and using them. During the Bush administration, when our national debt rose the fastest, it was because Bush engaged our military in an unproductive, winless war. For the principal reason. Two of them. Counterproductive wars. Yes. That's what causes countries to have to borrow money and to go broke.
Rome fell this way.
There's a reason America has no hope financially. Republicans are never going to cut the military spending, and Democrats are never going to cut entitlement spending. And unless you cut both of those, there is absolutely no financial hope for this country.
Right. You have to reduce everything by 90%.
Otherwise, we're bickering over about 2% of our budget.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
and meanwhile, you're poking the bear over there in Russia, saying
and China.
You're the bad man.
Oh,
Let me tell you what Russia has done
for Trump to say what he said today about, I welcome a nuclear arms race with Russia and China because we would win it. I mean, that takes us right back to American arrogance as based upon being a military superpower, and it's just revolting. You just want to say,
I'm sure the Republicans love that. That's straight out of the Ronald Reagan playbook. And that's
in the meantime, Russia has made big moves for their central. Now they're creating their own central bank of the Russian Federation.
Yeah,
they've got on board Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Ukraine, Belarus, possibly Armenia, Turkmenistan, Moldova, which I think will be replaced by China and Iran eventually. You have 12 nations who are forming a bloc. And Russia's largest bank, get this, you want to know what the name is? Alpha Bank. Putin kicked out all the international financial corporations in European reconstruction development, took over 5 foreign bankings that were left, including the Narodny Bank, left over from the Soviet Union. So they're breaking away.
And what's amazing is the entire purpose of the fraud that America has perpetrated in the Ukraine, where America deliberately and knowingly and undeniably caused militants, armed militants, to rise up against the popularly elected government of the Ukraine, expressly this tension, and then blame the Russians for the involvement that the United States itself was responsible for, all for one purpose, which is that NATO and our military alliances were losing their purpose. They had no more viability, no more reason for them. So by blaming Russia for what we did in the Ukraine, we justify NATO and our military spending, and Americans have a boogeyman now that we need to spend billions of dollars on our military to hold at bay.
Billions,
and what it did,
you know how much America spends per every dollar? It's 7 to 1 compared to Russia.
I know. Oh, it's more than that. America's spy and military combined is a little over $1 trillion a year.
Okay, but I didn't take the spy part.
Russia's in the range of $40 billion a year.
Yeah.
$1 trillion versus $40 billion.
1984. George Orwell wrote about how it didn't matter who Eurasia was at war with as long as they were at war.
Correct. Correct.
The ongoing war to justify the control, to justify, to keep the economy afloat, to justify the lack of rights, the invasion of privacy.
Correct. And so what happened is that the United States forced Europe to join it in this embargo against Russia. We blamed Russia for Clinton losing the election when it was her own emails and her own arrogance and duplicity that caused her to lose, and all to create this enemy. And so what did Russia do? Russia said, okay, well, if that's the way they're going to play, then I will rebuild my military. If that's what they're going to do, I will create my own central bank. That's what America's going to do. We'll have our own reserve currency. If that's what America's going to do, we'll push out American companies and do business internally. It'll take a while for us to make that transition, but we'll just isolate America.
Yeah. And they've got a lot of countries
and then while America
over there
is
in
squandering
the Asian
its
bloc
resources
in
Iraq and Syria and trying to get Assad out, we'll fight for Assad and we'll join Iran.
Not only that, I don't know if you know much about Kazakhstan. Did you know that Kazakh is a Hebrew word? It's to me, there's no one scarier in this world than a Kazakh. They are empowered to do just about anything. And if you look up the word in Hebrew, you'll see it. These people will kill you without a blinking an eye. And you've got Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, all these Eastern Bloc countries in Asia are all going to side with Russia and Iran and China.
Yeah, of course they're all
them out.
Yeah, they're all Muslim. They're all vicious internally. Yeah, they're all vicious. Yeah, welcome to our world. But that whole area is part of the Magog Federation and the Caucasus Mountains. But I was where Kublai Khan and Genghis Khan and Tamerlane found their warriors to be robbers. Oh yeah, it's a bad part of the world right there, and that's going to be part of the Magog Federation. We're witnessing exactly as Yahowah described the world uniting, and he specifically talks about how that Caucasus region is, which is where all the stands are, is going to unite with a united Iran, Iraq, and the area of Mesopotamia, and that they're going to ultimately partner with Russia, the Kingdom of the North, and that they and all the other Islamic nations of northern Africa and of the Middle East are all going to join a federation in opposition to Israel.
Yes. The one place that got me to realize all of this, without Torah, but Torah as my guide, is Ashfahan. Ashfahan actually means the other half of the world. And I'll be damned if all the stans are vassals of Ashfahan in Iran itself, Iran proper.
Yep, and of course they're all going to be...
It's amazing how reality matches Torah perfectly.
Yes, and they're going to flood into Israel, and the weapons they're going to wield are all going to be made in America. Welcome.
I'm not sure that some of the ships at Tarshish won't help them get there.
Of course.
I mean, the cargo is more than just weapons.
Of course, yeah. It's a lot of it's fuel to run
fuel and everything to keep the fires going.
But of course, those precious cargoes on the ships of Tarshish are American war material.
Yes.
Of course. That's why I was so against them. I'm against them.
Huh.
Yeah. Huh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, been a wonderful discussion. Thank you. I appreciate you putting up with my rant about prostitution.
Well, that was fascinating.
I really appreciate your insight into the harlots, the whore, and these women. It's very perfectly stated. They are extremely vicious and deadly, and not many people will confront this. And I'm glad you did. I too know women like this that hang around senators and high-profile people, CEOs. Been in some of the same circles. I've seen them around. I know. So I'm actually appreciative, and they are very toxic.
Yeah, one of the things I learned in Islam is that although women are demeaned and have no rights and have no value, they are the most vicious proponents of the religion. The Stockholm syndrome is alive and well. Yeah, and by the way, that is an aspect of the abuse. They are so abusive that of those that they control, when they show a moment of kindness which is totally feigned, there's this tendency to say, "Oh wow, I deserved the criticism, and this person is now being merciful to me because they're offering me this moment of kindness. They're offering me this gift when even the gift is manipulative."
Yes, I watched a beautiful video
like an abusive relationship.
Yeah, I watched a beautiful video of a woman dressed in the full Islamic dress kiss her two daughters while strapping them with bombs to send them to the Syrian police department, while her father said a prayer from the Quran, and she kissed her daughters goodbye, and at the end of the video it's just Allah Akbar. This is love to these women.
Yeah. Can imagine being that screwed up, that ignorant, that irrational. It's hard to imagine people that screwed up.
The Christian whore is just the same. She just wears a prettier dress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That God would want you to strap bombs to your children, not nurture them, not protect them, not love them.
It's the opposite
Strap
of what
bombs.
is natural. The natural thing to do is to protect your kid from harm in any way you possibly can. Sacrifice yourself to protect them. To pervert that natural tendency to that degree to where you're willing to go, here, strap this bomb on and go in there and kill yourself.
Yes, because if the children kill themselves,
sorry to
they
use
can
bad
grant
language, but
their
that's
parents.
fucked up.
Yeah, it's really
yes, they
screwed
can
up.
grant their parents some kind of honor system up there with Allah. It's insane.
It's child sacrifice.
Of course it is.
All over again.
Yeah, it is child sacrifice.
Yeah,
in
human
Islam,
sacrifice.
it is child sacrifice. It is right. And when you're mutilating your child's genitals, it's child sacrifice.
It was beyond.
Yeah.
I don't consider it any worse than an American family who bows before a cross and sends their child out to Afghanistan to kill these people. I don't consider it any worse.
Yeah.
It is the same coin, just two different sides.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's correct. No disagreement there.
No.
Yeah. Sending our children off to kill and to die is human sacrifice. Making weapons that kill people.
We're doing it in a less direct way
than
than they are, but it's the same result.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is a drone? When a drone falls over, bombs a home with women and children in it, human sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
And they play it like it's some kind of Las Vegas game, don't they?
They do.
Well, I think they have to, or they couldn't get them to do it.
And we cheer them on because they're protecting our freedom.
Oh,
and then we stand and salute their blood-soaked flag. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's truly amazing. I'm so glad that Yahowah has shared his insights as to why these things are counterproductive, why we ought not do them, why they are not truthful, why they are evil and inappropriate and in direct opposition to who he is. You know, his testimony is credible. He's lovable, and man's is not. Well, thank you very much. Had a lovely time. Let's hope that Larry continues to heal. Thank you for joining us, Lisa. JB, always great, and my friend Kirk, I appreciate you.
Okay, buddy.
Okay.
We'll see y'all. Shabbat shalom to all of you.
Yeah, good night, y'all.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay. Good night.
All right.
Shalom.
Good night.
Ciao.